You are listening to the Fashion Toolbox podcast with Laura Fish, providing you with all the tools to succeed in this dog-eat-dog industry. Get ready to see a side of the industry that you have never seen before, with real-life insights into what fashion is really like. Join me as I take you on a journey throughout my career in the industry, with a host of special guests, learning secrets of the trade to help you to find your dream career and meet your maximum potential. Hi and welcome back. On today's show we have the wonderful Alice Turner. Alice is a design team leader responsible for the print methods and processes at a renowned print and embroidery merchandise company. She has a passion for textile print and embroidery, as well as a keen creative eye for detail. Alice completed a variety of internships through her placement year at university, which gave her a fantastic insight into the industry and the skills required to succeed. She is joining me today to talk about all of the skills learnt in these internships and to fly the flag for the importance of industry placements and apprenticeships. So thank you, Alice, for joining me on the podcast this week, and welcome.
Hello.
Can you tell me about how you came to work in the fashion industry?
Yeah, so it really all started at secondary school when I did my textiles class. So when I was about 11, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. You know, just everything. I'd never done textiles like that before. But the main thing was that I didn't know what kind of job you could get with textiles. I didn't, understand where it would lead to. And I found all the career advice at school only showed a fashion designer. And I knew that I didn't want to do that, because I just really wanted to be involved in the fabrics and the textiles and the making things aspect. And it was just this fashion designer word I didn't connect with, because I wasn't necessarily interested in the clothes. It was more of what they were made of and how they were decorated and that side of it. So I did textiles at GCSE as well, and I just had the most amazing teacher ever. She showed me her own personal projects that she worked on at home and let me use her fancy embroidery machine, that weren't the school's machines. So I was really grateful for that, because it made me feel quite special, like she could see something in me, and, the passion just grew from that. And it just made me so much more interested in the class. And I think she was the only teacher that I wanted to impress, and the class I wanted to stand out in school. And yeah, that teacher, I have seen her a few times since I've finished school, and we've gone for coffee and stuff, and she came to see my degree show at uni. So I'd keep in contact with her. So she knows what an inspiration she was to me. So then at A-level, my school didn't actually do textiles. So I had to do product design, which was a bit, it's what I had to do. And I ended up making something out of steel, I think, in my final project, I was like, what am I doing? But I found some night classes at a nearby college, and because I was still in education, they were free. So I did 2 textile night courses while I was doing my A-levels, and they were amazing. It was a group, I think they were retired women in the group, because it was a class you could pay for. And I just had the most fun with them. We just chatted about textiles, and I did a lot of printing and embroidery and making things. And it was just a really nice gathering situation to be in. And, it let me continue with textiles in that way when I couldn't at school. So then when I finished school, I went on to study textiles with surface pattern design at Huddersfield University. And I just loved that. I did a sandwich degree with a placement year. And then when I finished, I went straight to work in the clothing company that I'm at now once I graduated. And I've been there almost 3 years now.
Great. So you've been on quite a journey, and it's really, really good. I think that you had that opportunity at school so young to do textiles. That's an opportunity that I didn't get, definitely didn't get. And I was a little bit like you in that I was kind of pushed down that product design route and hearing a lot about fashion design, and that being
the only role that you can get into, all the glitz and glam, it's just, it is really, really shameful that is the only role that is highlighted as being, I don't know, successful, I guess.
Yeah, it's like that's the only one they could see value in. And it's probably the schools that haven't done the research into all the different fields for it as well. So, but it's bad because it just doesn't help you at all.
I would completely agree with that. It's a lack of knowledge, really. And I think that there should be more skill in terms of career advice so that people can actually guide you in those specific areas, no matter what it is. Even if it's not fashion, there's lots of specialised areas. And it's absolutely great to hear about your tutor that was so supportive. Fantastic to know that there's people out there like that will support you in the industry.
Yeah, she was amazing. Like, I even remember we made waistcoats, and it's just simple stuff like that. She had 2 different patterns, and one was easier and one was more difficult. And, the majority of the class went for the easier one, as you would. But she was like, why don't you try the more complex one? And I think in the end, I didn't actually hand that project in on time because it had taken me so long. I ended up doing it over like a half-term break, I think. So I was disappointed because I didn't actually I don't think I got the grade for it. It wasn't a massive project that it mattered. And she said, oh, don't worry about it at all. But like what you've made is amazing. And, you've spent that extra time on it. So even that was really good.
Yeah, brilliant. So what role did you actually want to do when you first started out on your education journey?
Yeah, so like I said, at school, I just didn't know what the job was at all. I just knew textiles. So then at uni, that really helped me because the course I was on let you do 4 disciplines in first year. So it was print, knit, weave and embroidery. And then you could specialise in one. So I specialised in embroidery, and I really wanted to be an embroidery designer after that. And couture companies and fashion houses really appealed to me, but I just didn't know how you'd get into it. Like, I had this dream in my head of being in Paris, like working at an atelier, and, I loved that idea, but I just didn't know if that would be possible. And a thing that really stood out to me at uni was in a lecture, they once told us that we'd obviously pick this course because we weren't interested in making loads of money. And I didn't really agree with that because I knew I wanted to be successful and, make something. And I think they really focused on it being like an arty course almost, and you as like a solo designer maker, like selling your stuff at craft fairs. And, I didn't want that. I wanted to go out there, in the big world and work at a really good company. I just, a good job, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do that to a lot of us in the art sector and just, I don't know, just dismiss it as being a successful role. And it absolutely, it can be, you can be successful and you can probably make good money as well in both fashion and textiles. There's so many roles out there, so many opportunities. And like you say, we're working for the big fashion houses and maybe starting up your own business. There's many opportunities.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
You have undertaken quite a few internships in London. Could you tell me about why you chose to do them and how you came across them as well?
So I did the sandwich degree at uni, and that was something I knew I always wanted to look for in my course that I found, because I thought, with a practical course like that, you needed real life experience and to make contacts. And because the course is very, like book-based kind of thing, you needed that extra part of it. So I knew that I wanted that more experience and just to see what it entailed in the industry, what was out there, and to get stuck into it and get away from education for a while, because I'd just come straight from school and I'd never had a full-time job before. Like, I'd worked at cafes part-time and stuff, so I'd never had an experience of work, fashion work, textile work. And I wanted to build my CV up while still being in that security of university. So I found most of my placements through the university placement system, which was good at Huddersfield. And then one of them was through a family friend who worked in the industry. So I was quite lucky there. And I returned to a company that I'd started my placement year with to do another 3 months at the end of my year to do another London Fashion Week with them. So that was good that they brought me back there, because I think I worked at 4 companies in the end over the year. And I chose to do that because I know you could find ones that lasted for the full year. But I did look, and I thought I wanted to see what was out there, because I still wasn't 100% sure of what I wanted to do. So I did take that risk, I suppose, of finding shorter ones that were 3 months, 6 weeks, just to, experience more companies. And I found them all a real eye-opener, and especially doing 2 London Fashion Weeks and, the late nights for the build-up to those and the work it entailed. It was crazy, and that really made me see that I didn't want to work for a company that did London Fashion Week, I think, because it was exhausting. But yeah, they were great. They were really great.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you chose to get that variety, and I would say that is definitely a good way to go. I didn't do that. Sometimes I wish that I did, but I did a solid year placement. But I mean, that was still just excellent. The knowledge that you learn on the industry placements is just fantastic. You can't get that from education. It's just so different, the skill set and everything.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's so, so important.
So on that, how important are internships in industry?
Massively, massively important. I think like some companies I worked for, it seemed to rely on the interns to run smoothly and manage to get all the work out. So from that point of view, the companies, value you, I suppose, as much as you value being there, because they do need you. And unfortunately, that does come with disadvantages in that I only got paid expenses at most of the ones I was at. So I think that did come with me doing the shorter placements, whereas if I found a year somewhere, especially a reputable company, I would have been paid. But I chose that other route. And, I don't think it's very fair to just get paid expenses, but it seems to be the way it is. And I would like to see a change in that, really. But I think because I was still in the university environment, it was fine because I was getting a bit of a grant from uni, but there was people doing expense interns that were graduates, which, I think you're not allowed to do that. I think, is it illegal?
I think it is. I think something came in not so long back that made it illegal, but I think when I was at university, it wasn't. It's definitely not that long since that happened.
Yeah. So it's crazy, really. But yeah, I thought it was a really good step in to companies, though, on a way to build up contacts in your CV and to meet these people and get an insight into other businesses and, how to meet people and communicate and see what's going on in the world. And it's not necessarily the people that are working in the companies. It can be the other interns that you're working with and chatting to them, because you're at the same stage of education. And, when you finish uni together, their contacts in the industry that you've made through that same experience. And, you could end up working with them. You could set up a business with them. It's, anything really.
Yeah, I agree with you that placements should be paid. It's not fair. And like you say, to most companies, placements are absolutely invaluable and they keep things ticking over. They do it year on year, and on the opportunity for networking, it's priceless. Building your contacts, it's so important in the industry and for your career. So I totally agree with that. What would you say are the most valuable things that you learned on your internships?
So because I worked at 4 different companies, I thought it was, even more of a great thing because I got to see and do a lot more. So because of my specialising in embroidery. I did do embellishment internships. That's what I was looking for. But I got a lot more into the fashion side of it. So I ended up doing a lot of pattern drafting and toiling and being involved in fitting sessions. And, that was great to me. I got to make toiles, something I'd never done before, and even make patterns for outfits. And then especially seeing them being worn on London Fashion Week and the embroideries that I'd done, it was just amazing to me to have those images up there on the internet that I could put and say I helped to make this. So that was amazing, alongside going out sourcing things around London, going to the trimming shops, seeing what was out there. Hours and hours I'd spend trying to find zips and things like that. It was tiring, but it was good and it was exciting. You felt like you were part of something being in London as well. I went to factories and liaised with them, like taking them the fabrics like leather to make trousers and just things I never thought I'd do, really. So yeah, it was just amazing because I got to see all of this, and it was design as well. I was involved with tech packs for when it went into bigger production overseas for the garments. So yeah, a lot. And I made really good friends while I was doing the placement as well. So that's another valuable thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really, really good insight in the placements that you had. So how have these skills helped you in your career so far?
So my confidence definitely grew so much from it. And I felt that going back into final year. I thought in second year, I kind of got a bit lost with the projects I was on. And I kind of lost interest, I suppose, in the course because I just wasn't sure what I was doing. So that year out really focused my mind and made me see where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So even like I went back and I knew what I wanted to do for my final major project, and I'd planned that in my placement year because I'd been working on a menswear collection and doing embroidery for a designer fashion company, on the pockets and cuffs. And I went back to uni knowing that I wanted to do embellishment and menswear and enhancing things. So it just really focused me. And yeah, I was confident. I went back and did a talk in front of first years about my placement year, which is something I never thought I would do in front of like 40, they're not kids, so I was going to say kids, 40 first years about my placement year. And I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, because before I would be terrified about anything like that. But I just felt like I had something that I wanted to share with people, and I wanted them to feel inspired and feel like they can do whatever they want to do, really. And I still use things I learned on that year in my job now as inspiration for directions we could go down. So yeah, I bring it in now, like things that I saw, things that I did, that I was involved in. So it was really useful. And another thing that I think it really taught me was what I didn't want to do and what kind of business I didn't want to work for or be involved with. And, where I'm even wanting to look for a job when I finished uni. It helped me with all of that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the focus part, because I was exactly the same. I think I had totally lost direction in second year as well, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that placement just, it really, I guess because you've got to keep up with the speed of industry as well, you suddenly realise that university isn't really that bad. And it just, your planning and organisation just becomes spot on, and it focuses your mind. You can decide what you want to do. And I was exactly the same. I went back into final year. I'd already planned like most of my collection. I'd done mood boards, everything. So it does, I completely agree.
Yeah, because even my dissertation, I was able to put a lot of what I'd learned in my placement year into that to hand in. So I used that as my experience. And like the interviews and that side of it, the research was from my placement year. So it was firsthand what I'd seen, and I didn't necessarily have to go out and find something that I didn't know about. So it was amazing, yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. What was the most useful thing that you learned at university?
So how to be creative, I think. I had a very art-led course and we were pushed to be experimental with everything that we did. So, yeah, we'd just go crazy. I remember doing a knit sample and I knitted necklaces into my piece, which, you just wouldn't necessarily do that in a commercial industry. But it just let you push those boundaries and just do whatever you wanted, really. And something else that stands out to me in final year was confidence boosting workshops they did with us. So like the elevator pitch that we had to do in front of the room of everyone else on the course. And, if you met your dream employer in a lift, what would you say to them? And how would you sell yourself? So that was great. And the tutor again there, she was amazing and just really pushed us to just say these things and was fully behind us because she knew us and she knew what our potential was and she wanted us to see that ourselves. And I think that, again, helped me so much for going for jobs afterwards, just to know that I could do it and that I had these skills behind me and that I shouldn't necessarily be afraid of what I wanted.
Yeah. I was going to say about boundaries before you actually said it. It definitely shows you how far you can push things. I mean, in industry, you're probably a little bit more restricted, but at least at university, you get to try that and it kind of sets it for you for the future, I suppose.
Yeah.
So how did you get into your current field of work?
So, yeah, when I finished uni, I spent the summer frantically searching for jobs like mad. I knew that I wanted to stay up north. I loved London and that is somewhere that I always thought that I was going to go. But I think coming back for final year, I just fell in love with the north again and how nice everyone is. And even the potential, because in London I could just see it was so crowded and everyone was searching for the same thing. And up here, I just thought there might be more room for me. And there's a lot in Huddersfield, especially, there's a lot of textile companies. It's still a big industry up here for things like that. So I just thought I'll see what I can find. And if not, I can look elsewhere. But I found the company that I work at now and thought they looked really interesting. So we're a print and embroidery company on clothing. So we'll do like uniforms, levers, hoodies for schools, fashion brands, loads of stuff. And I just thought this is a company, again, that I've not really had much experience with and I don't know much about. So I emailed them and had an interview and I started work that September straight away. So I was really grateful for that. But I kind of wish that I'd relaxed more and enjoyed my last summer of no work. So, yeah, when I started there, they asked if I'd be interested in an apprenticeship. And I was quite sceptical at first because I'd just done a degree. So I thought, if I'm honest, I was like, why do I need an apprenticeship when I've got a degree? Why would I do that? So I looked more into it. It was an NVQ level 2 manufacturing sewn products with the textile centre in Huddersfield. So I looked and I thought, why not? Let's just do it. I mean, I'm not losing anything. I'm doing it alongside my work at this new company. So I went for it. And I'm so grateful that I did because it was so valuable and taught me so much more than I could ever have expected. Mainly because I'd never had a full-time job before. And it really taught me about that. And I felt at school and uni, they never teach you about having a job. And that's what the apprenticeship did. Simple stuff like, where's the fire escape? Where's the first aid kit? Questions like that if I started at a company, I wouldn't have gone out and asked those questions, maybe because I felt self-conscious. I didn't want to seem annoying and be asking silly things like that. But the apprenticeship made you do that. And I talked to, nearly everyone in the company to find out information, the directors. We had to do a project on how, the company was founded, when it started, who worked there. So, I had to email these people and ask all these questions to learn more about it. And that really helped me because it made you more interested in the company, really. You could see where they started and who was there from the beginning and learn more about it. So I definitely recommend an apprenticeship to anyone because it was really, really good.
Yeah, it does sound like a really, really good experience. And I hear lots of good things about the Textile Centre of Excellence in Huddersfield. And they do quite a few other courses, don't they, as well?
They do, yeah. I think because we just, decorate products, I couldn't go further because we would have gone for another apprenticeship after that. But because we don't actually sew the garments ourselves, I would have to have gone to another company to get to the next level. But what I did was great.
So in your opinion, how useful are apprenticeships for expanding your skill set in the industry? And do you think this is something which maybe should be promoted earlier on in education?
Definitely. I think they're amazing. It's on-the-job learning, so it helps you realise your mistakes and that it's all right to make mistakes as long as you're learning from it and looking into them and ways you can improve. I think it makes you better at your job because you're looking out for those things. And, especially with the mistakes again, like if I'd set up an embroidery and something had gone wrong on it, it wasn't necessarily the end of the world because I could, I was learning. So I knew, this is what I can improve. So next time I do it, I won't make that same mistake again.
Yeah.
And everything you put into an A4 folder, so all the documentation. So like with that embroidery reference again, if I'd made that mistake where it pulled in too much, I would have kept that piece and written about what had gone wrong in it. So you could see the progression you made over the year at the company. And I've still got that folder now, and it's great to look through because, it can still teach me things. And again, like I said about the company history, it's just asking those questions and looking at things that you might not have done at a company before. You just sit at your desk and think this is my job, but it just makes you look that bit further into it. But yeah, schools should definitely push them more because I'd never heard much about apprenticeships at school before. And if I did, I would say it was more focused on boys maybe and like construction type courses, stuff like that, like electrical, engineering. That's what I'd put with an apprenticeship. But especially the Textile Centre of Excellence, the stuff that they do there is amazing. And I would have loved that if I knew that something like that existed when I was at school, because it would have really inspired me. But we just had no information about it.
Yeah, this is something that I find really frustrating because I believe that fashion and textiles are a trade skill, just as construction, plumbing, mechanic, it is a trade skill and it should be treated as such. So those apprenticeships for us interested in those in those industries would just be fantastic. If only they could be introduced sooner. So Let's keep us fingers crossed for that for the future. What skills would you say are paramount to your role in the industry?
So definitely computer skills for me. At work we use CorelDRAW, which I'd never heard of when I started because at uni we were just taught Photoshop and Illustrator. So I would say, and I'll admit that I was quite snobby that I thought Photoshop and Illustrator were the bee's knees and CorelDRAW I was like, oh, what's this? But I actually love it now. And it's definitely like an Illustrator type program, but it's so much easier to use. Like I found that I can't use Illustrator anymore because I find it so difficult to redraw stuff. And like if a customer sends me an Illustrator file, I'll open it in CorelDRAW instead of that. So I'd say to anyone, search for other softwares that are out there. Don't just go with the Adobe suite because there is alternatives. Wilcom we use for embroidery and digitising. And again, we didn't use that at uni. So I've had to learn that at work. So that's, again, a really amazing software. I think a real awareness of the commercial market is important for me and making sure the work's cost effective because we can make just one garment for someone and we can make hundreds of garments. So we need to know that the work we're putting into it is effective for that piece because I can't spend hours and hours on one hoodie as much as I might want to. But you need to know about that and be aware of what you're working on really and be able to manage your time well. definitely communication with people. We have production in the same building. So, we need to make sure everything's running smoothly. Everyone knows what they're making and that it works for them and that the job's easy. Because I think for a designer, it's so easy to say yes to everything, because for us, the work's not as hard as when it gets to production. So for last week, for example, we had an order for, it was about 700 garments, and they were all getting individually bagged, and the customer asked if he could have stickers put on the bags with his logo. So I was like, yeah, of course, that's fine. And then you realise it's 700 stickers that we're having to print, and they all need to be peeled off. So we ended up getting involved to help bag things and put the stickers on. And it made me realise, yeah, in design, I can say, yeah, it's easy for me to just design it, because the same work I put in for one garment is the same I'll put in for 700 garments. But in the production side of it, that's where the time is. So you need to, be involved and be respectful for people that are doing that work as well, and making it, easy for them. And I just think the willingness to learn and adapt and expand your knowledge as well is really important in fashion and textiles, and to see what's out there and just be ahead of the game, really, and be interested in it, and love what you're doing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I am totally committed to lifelong learning, and I think that the industry just changes so rapidly that we need to make sure that we're keeping up to date at all times with what's going on. It's not just about trends anymore, it's what software there is, what's going on, that everything is just, it's moving all the time. And yeah, it's so important to know and understand the knock-on effect that you can have in any role. I think, especially, as you say, as a designer, right at the beginning of the process, you can just affect so many things that other people are having to do. How important is it for a designer to be aware of fabric properties such as behaviours and characteristics?
Incredibly important. I cannot stress this enough. So where I work, we use 3 different printing methods for our orders to fulfill them. So that's screen, transfer, and direct to garment printing. So when I'm looking at an order, I need to know what print method is going to be most suitable for the garments that are in the order. So like polyester, for example, is really tricky to print on. So I need to know that what I pick will, be what the customer wants and will be happy with and will look great, but will also stay on the garment. Because that's something I think at uni they never taught us, is how to cure inks and wash fastness and stuff. Like, I remember doing screen print at uni, and we'd hang stuff up to dry on a hanger, which I still, to this day, like, if I did that at work, it's, it would take days for starters, but as soon as it was washed, it would just wash off, and a customer wouldn't accept that. So, we have a massive dryer at work, a dual belt dryer, because screen and direct to garment cure at different temperatures. So we're just continuously having to do wash tests, because if anything changes, we need to be sure that product will, stand the test of time, and a customer, can wash their top every week and it's going to look the same. And another example is tri-blend materials. So with polyester, cotton and rayon mixed together, they're quite fibrous, so the fibres stick out a lot. And especially with direct to garment, it prints straight into the fibres of the garment. So it can, with tri-blends, they can stick out and it can make the print look not very nice, really. So I need to be aware of that and, try and find solutions that we can make it look better, because it's all about the quality, really, and a customer being happy with what they receive. And that can even go through to embroidery and making sure a garment's framed correctly, because if you're just slightly off, slightly to the right and it's going across the grain, your embroidery, the whole design can be ruined and it can just look wonky and it just doesn't look right. So you need to make sure that's correct, the backing you're using is stable enough for the material you're working on, if it's a thinner weight and heavier weights. There's so much that goes into it all. Nothing's the same at all.
Yeah, so much to consider.
Mm-hmm.
So what does your job entail on an average working day?
So I mainly work on printed orders, which is funny, as I thought I was going to be an embroidery designer and that's what I wanted to do, but print just really has captured me and I just love it. So I'd check that an artwork's good enough quality and suitable for the print method I'm using. So, direct to garment, we can print directly from an artwork file. So I'd use Photoshop to make sure the resolution's correct, there's no background behind it, and make sure the size is set up. And then I'd use CorelDRAW to redraw artwork and separate colours for screen print and etc. And that's something else I want to stress. Like at uni, I had no clue what the difference between a raster and a vector graphic was. And this is something that I've learned at work. And I can't believe, even now, it did take me a while to get my head around it. I don't know why. But I didn't know what the difference really between Photoshop and Illustrator was. And that's something that I've learned now. And it's so important. So yeah, once I'm happy with the artwork, I'll send a proof to the customer to make sure they're happy with the design work I've done and sign that off with them. And then the jobs can go into production. But at my work, I also help to bring in the direct-to-garment process into the company. And I just love that process. It uses water-based inks, full eco-friendly, like minimal waste. And I've had a great opportunity with that. I got to go to Dusseldorf, where the machine headquarters is, and have a training course there. So I'm actually a certified machine engineer, which is something I never thought that I would be. So I'm licensed to take it apart if I really want to. So again, that's something that I never thought that I would get into, but it's something that I'm really fascinated with, the print heads, making sure they're maintained properly. It's problem solving. If the print's not looking right, I can work out what that might be, and if that's to do with the fabric I'm printing on or the artwork. There's a lot of aspects into it. So I'll oversee that everything is going well with the machine we've got, and I even operate the machine when necessary, and I love to do that. That's something I love at my work, is that I can see an order from design through to production and packing and shipping it. And it brings me so much satisfaction that I can do that. Like I can jump on any machine I want. And, they promote that. They want us to do that and be involved. And it helps me see, again, that hard work that goes into it. Because in design, I could just stop it there and think, right, it's not my problem anymore. But I want to see the production side and see it through, and even check that what I've designed looks good and that it worked. And if it doesn't work, then I can improve it and make changes in design.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the best part about being a designer, is being able to see the end product, and the kind of buzz that gives you is just, you can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, fantastic. I know. It is amazing. And even just feedback from the customers, and if they're happy with it, or if they're not happy with it, to ask them why. And even just a phone call to chat to them, explain to them what I've done, can help people see that more. Like I've invited one of our customers in, once all this pandemic's over, to actually see the process that his orders go on, because I think it'll give him a better understanding as well of, what we're doing and what possibilities there is for him to change his designs and, to really work with them in that way as well.
Yeah. I think I'm spotting a bit of a trend between us all, that we all seem to be addicted to problem solving. Yeah. Everybody that I've spoken to is the same. It's fantastic. It must give us a bit of a kick.
Yeah, I think so.
So you mentioned there about the difference between a raster and a vector and how you have figured that out. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Photoshop is for raster graphics. So it's made up of pixels. So you're creating your artwork on there and it's pixel based. So that is perfect for some forms of artwork, if you're blending colours and, drawing in Photoshop really. So for me, I would love that kind of artwork file if I was doing direct to garment printing because I can print it straight away. But if I was doing screen print, it's a lot more tricky because I need to take those colours apart to print them. So that's where vector comes in, and that's more to do with lines and curves and sharp edges. And that's what is great for screen print because you can take the colours apart easier. The resolution and quality of the file is so much better because it's infinite. You can't, I don't know how to describe that, but it stays good. Whereas on Photoshop, because of the pixels, you can have lower quality files, and that is something that I see a lot, is really bad quality files. And I think a lot of that is to do with the web and saving smaller files to go on there. But people, you just really need to have the different types of file and save them in all different ways, so you're not just having this poor quality version, because we want everything that's the best.
Absolutely. It's so important when you're printing. It's got to be a really high resolution image, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So in your opinion, what makes a successful designer?
I definitely think the willingness to learn. Things change a lot, so you need to know the market you're in and adapt to it, and keep up with your customers. So you're bringing something that they want, like talk to them, see what's out there. Any idea isn't crazy because, things change so much, and you can change with the customer and, bring them something new that's out there. Like at the moment, obviously, eco-friendly, everything, it needs to change, and a lot of changes are being made, but it needs to go a lot further in respecting the garments that you wear and not just having what you want straight away, and not worrying about the quality of it. So we are doing a lot in changing the products that we're selling and trying to promote to people, because, we can be selling these cheaper t-shirts, but they're nowhere near as nice, and they don't feel as nice, and they often don't print or embroider very nicely. It is the nicer quality ones that for us are easier to work with as well. So I think a lot is about changing as well. And even if something sells well for you, but it's not doing good to anyone else, just don't sell it. I personally think you shouldn't offer it. Looking at new processes, don't just stick to what you know and what you feel safe with all the time. I think change, like learn new things, because it is obviously good to stick to what you're good at, but you can get stuck there and you're scared of anything else. If someone suggests something to you, you might think, oh no, I can't do that. Like I've never done that before. I don't know. But, you can learn and take that risk. And if it goes wrong, at least you've tried to see what might happen. And I think another thing is to see what your competitors are doing and, be aware of that. I'm not necessarily saying you should copy people at all, but just know what's out there. But to stick true to yourself is another thing, I think. Don't just be designing for the sake of it and make something because you feel you should make it. You need to have a connection with it. And sometimes I know that can be quite hard if you're given a brief from someone to make something, but I think to, find something in it that you can connect with and really, find a meaning in is really important, because you don't just want to be putting stuff out there for the sake of it, really. It needs to have a purpose.
Yeah. And just on that kind of note, you spoke a little bit there about like eco-friendly and sustainability. Do you think that post-COVID, the business is going to have to change in any way? Is there any changes that you think are afoot for the industry?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. hope that it has brought people a lot more awareness of, what's going on in the world and where we're getting things from. And, with this mask thing now, the disposable masks, I'm seeing them on the street and it's horrible. And we're definitely trying to promote reusable ones that you can wash, because, that's what it's all about. It's reusing stuff. And, you can embellish things and change it to make it feel new, but you don't just have to chuck something away when you've got bored of it. And for us, because we do this personalised clothing, a lot is about bringing people together. So we want people to feel good and feel together as part of a team, a workforce. So I think we're seeing changes with that, with, gifts, leavers, hoodies. They have more meaning to them rather than just buying something because it's cheap. You're just willing to, put that bit of extra time and money into something that will stay with you for a long time.
Yeah, I definitely think that people are starting to open their eyes to it and see. So I do think it's going to become a much bigger thing in the future. So finally, what one key piece of advice would you give to someone who wants to become a designer?
So I have said this before, but how to create and save your artwork and designs for the best quality outcome. So like I've said already, know the difference between raster and vector graphics and which one is best for the artwork you're trying to create, because I have seen a lot of line work that's been done on Photoshop, which is fine, but I would always recommend to do it in Illustrator and have it as a vector. Even if you've just got both, so when you're getting it produced, that the companies producing it has the option to pick what is best for them. So yeah, how to set them up, save them properly, make sure everything is the best it can be. And like I said, this is something I didn't learn until I got a job. And it did take me a while to get my head round. So definitely get as much as you can out of your CAD lessons, because it is so important. And I think for me at uni, I liked CAD, but it was only once a week for a few hours. And I remember drawing an orange on Photoshop, which, I don't know why we did that. It didn't really stand out to me. So maybe they should be changed and should really teach people more about why they're doing it, because that could be what I felt is, why am I drawing this? Why am I doing that? I don't understand what this is going to help me with in my career. So yeah, I've definitely been saved by a lot of YouTube videos in my time, tutorials. So yeah, never stop learning what's out there with every update, even on Photoshop, because they're always changing things all the time and you can create such good things. So you just need to see what you can do with it, really.
Yeah, I agree in terms of the CAD lessons. For me, the same. I didn't really learn anything. And when I first started using Illustrator, I wanted to chop my arm off because I couldn't figure out how to work the pen tool.
Yeah.
But I just, I persevered. And like you, I would say that I'm self-taught. I don't think that anything that I learned on there was from university. So definitely push yourself to learn, even if you're not picking it up from university. Make yourself aware and get involved. So
yeah, because I remember at uni, we weren't allowed to use a mouse. We had to do everything on a Wacom tablet.
Oh, really?
Which, yeah, they've said put your mouse to the back. You're not allowed to use it. You have to use a Wacom, which was fine, and it took me a while to get used to. But then when I started work, they didn't have Wacom tablets. They had mice, and I found myself being like, "Oh, I can't use a mouse," and they were like, "What?" And they were like, "I don't know what a Wacom tablet is." So I did have one at home, so I did bring that in to work to use for a bit, because I found designing with a mouse so hard. So I don't know why they did that uni, because it didn't help me. It did hinder me when I first started work. And everyone was like, "What are you using?" Because it's a pen. And they were like, "Why are you drawing on the table?" I think they thought I was a bit crazy. And then I did go back onto the mouse. So that's what I can use now. But yeah, do what you feel comfortable with, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I learnt with the mouse. We didn't have the Wacom when I was at university, but I learned eventually, because when I went into industry, it was the other way around for me. They had the tablets and everybody was using them, and I was like, I need a mouse.
Yeah.
But I learned, again, I bought myself one, got it at home and practiced until I could do both. So it's, another skill that I would say that it's quite important to have as a designer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So get both, everyone. A Wacom and a mouse.
And they're quite affordable, aren't they, the Wacoms? So it's not too bad.
No.
So that is all of the questions, Alice.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that you want to add?
I just think, this podcast is going to be so great to so many people, and I hope that you find it useful and know that there's so much more out there than you have probably thought or been taught. And, it's all about connecting with people and learning from people and asking the questions, and doing what you want to do and enjoy it, definitely.
Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your journey and discussing your experience and the importance of the apprenticeships and the internships. I think that's going to be really, really helpful for students to know. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Fashion Toolbox podcast. Make sure to subscribe so that you'll never miss out on the future episodes.